Hello there, have you ever heard of a war that lasted less time than a tea break? Well, gather round because today we're diving into a truly remarkable historical event, the Anglo-Zanzibar War of 1896. It's a story of empires, spices, and a conflict that was over before most people even knew it had begun. Now you might be thinking, a war in 38 minutes? Surely they're exaggerating. But I assure you this is no tall tale. This brief but fascinating conflict really did unfold in the blink of an eye, leaving behind a legacy that's both intriguing and thought-provoking. So without further ado, let's journey back to the heart of the action on the exotic island of Zanzibar. Imagine, if you will, a tropical paradise, palm-fringed beaches, turquoise waters, and the intoxicating aroma of cloves and spices wafting through the air. That's Zanzibar. This island, nestled just off the coast of East Africa, has a history as rich and colorful as the spices it's famous for. For centuries, Zanzibar was a crossroads of cultures and commerce. Arab traders sailed its seas, bringing with them their customs and influences. The island became a hub for the spice trade, its clove plantations a source of immense wealth. But as the 19th century dawned, a new power arrived on the scene, the British Empire. You see, Britain had developed a bit of a reputation for, shall we say, expanding its influence around the globe. From the vast lands of India to the far reaches of Africa, the British Empire was always on the lookout for new territories to add to its ever-growing dominion. Their strategy was simple: find a region with valuable resources or a strategic location, and then establish control, often under the guise of protection or trade agreements. And Zanzibar, with its strategic location and valuable resources, was too tempting a prize to resist. Nestled off the coast of East Africa, this island was a bustling hub of trade, particularly in spices and slaves. Its harbors were filled with ships from all over the world, making it a key point of interest for any empire looking to expand its reach. So, the British struck a deal, making Zanzibar a protectorate. This arrangement allowed them to exert control without the need for direct governance. They installed a sultan who was favorable to their interests, ensuring that the island's wealth and strategic advantages were firmly in British hands. This meant that while the island technically had its own ruler, the real power rested in British hands. The sultan was more of a figurehead, with British officials pulling the strings behind the scenes. This setup allowed the British to maintain a semblance of local governance while ensuring their interests were protected. Now, this arrangement might have continued indefinitely, were it not for a rather ambitious fellow named Khalid bin Bargash. Khalid was a member of the ruling family and had his own ideas about Zanzibar's future. He was not content to be a mere puppet of the British and dreamed of a Zanzibar that was truly independent. When the pro-British Sultan died suddenly, Khalid saw his chance. He quickly moved to seize power, hoping to restore Zanzibar's independence and break free from British control. His actions were bold and decisive, catching the British off guard. He quickly seized power, hoping to restore Zanzibar's independence and break free from British control. The streets of Zanzibar were soon filled with tension and uncertainty as Khalid's supporters clashed with those loyal to the British-installed regime. It was a time of great upheaval and change. Little did he know, his actions would trigger a chain of events that would lead to the shortest war in history. The British, unwilling to lose their grip on such a valuable territory, responded with overwhelming force. What followed was a brief but intense conflict that would be remembered for its brevity and the dramatic shift it brought to Zanzibar's history. Tick-tock Sultan, the ultimatum. The British, as you might imagine, were not best pleased with Khalid's little power grab. The sudden and unexpected move by Khalid bin Bargash to seize control of the Sultanate of Zanzibar was seen as a brazen affront to British authority. The British Empire, with its vast colonial reach, was not in the habit of tolerating such defiance. They saw it as a direct challenge to their authority, and wasted no time in responding. The British naval fleet stationed nearby was immediately put on high alert. Troops were mobilized, and preparations for a swift and decisive response were underway. The message was clear: the British Empire would not be trifled with. An ultimatum was delivered to the new Sultan's surrender by 9 o'clock in the morning on August 27, 1896, or face the consequences. The British officer, with a stern expression, handed over the document, making it abundantly clear that there would be no room for negotiation or delay. Khalid, perhaps a tad overconfident, chose to ignore the warning. He believed that his position and the loyalty of his followers would be enough to withstand any British aggression. His defiance was palpable, and he seemed to relish the challenge. He rallied his troops, a rather ragtag bunch numbering in the hundreds, and prepared for a fight. These were not professional soldiers but local militia, armed with whatever weapons they could muster. Despite their lack of formal training, they were determined to defend their leader and their land. He seemed to believe that the British wouldn't dare to attack. His confidence was infectious, and his men, though outmatched, were ready to stand by him. The atmosphere was charged with a mix of bravado and apprehension. Oh, how wrong he was. The British were not known for backing down, especially when their authority was challenged so openly. The clock was ticking, and the tension was palpable. As the clock ticked down to 9 o'clock, tension hung heavy in the air. Every second felt like an eternity as both sides braced for what was to come. The ultimatum's deadline was fast approaching, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Little did anyone know, history was about to be made. The events that would unfold in the next few moments would be etched into the annals of history, a testament to the clash of empires and the indomitable spirit of those who dared to defy them. 38 minutes of fury. Promptly at 9 o'clock in the morning, as the morning sun glinted off the harbor waters, the British unleashed their might. Warships armed with the latest weaponry opened fire on the Sultan's palace and harbor defenses. Can you imagine the scene? The peaceful morning shattered by the roar of cannons. The Zanzibari forces, hopelessly outmatched, put up a valiant but futile resistance. Their outdated cannons were no match for the British firepower. The Sultan's palace crumbled under the onslaught, and his wooden warships were reduced to splinters in a matter of minutes. Within 38 minutes, it was all over. The Sultan, realizing the futility of his situation, fled for his life, seeking refuge in the German consulate. The aftermath, not quite a tea party. The Anglo-Zanzibar War, if you can even call it that, was over before most of Zanzibar's inhabitants had finished their morning tea. The casualties spoke volumes about the lopsided nature of the conflict. Around 500 Zanzibari soldiers and civilians killed or wounded, compared to a single, slightly singed British sailor. The swift and decisive victory cemented Britain's dominance in the region. Khalid bin Bargash, his hopes of independence dashed, lived out his days in exile. Zanzibar became a stark reminder of the overwhelming power of European imperialism at the height of its reach. History's lesson: big stick, small war, big questions. So there you have it. The story of the Anglo-Zanzibar War, a conflict as brief as it was one-sided. This war, lasting a mere 38 minutes, stands as the shortest recorded war in history. It was a stark demonstration of the overwhelming military might of the British Empire against the Sultanate of Zanzibar. It's a tale that might elicit a chuckle or two given its sheer brevity. Imagine a war that could be over in the time it takes to brew a pot of tea. Yet, behind the humor lies a sobering reality. But it also prompts us to reflect on a more serious note. The Anglo-Zanzibar War, though brief, was a microcosm of the larger dynamics at play during the age of imperialism. It forces us to consider the human cost of such conflicts and the lasting impact on the societies involved. The war, in its own bizarre way, encapsulates the stark realities of colonialism. It highlights the imbalance of power and the often brutal enforcement of colonial rule. The Sultanate of Zanzibar, despite its rich history and culture, was no match for the industrialized military machine of the British Empire. It serves as a reminder of the vast disparities in military technology and political power that existed between European empires and the societies they sought to control. The advanced weaponry and naval capabilities of the British were far beyond what the Zanzibari forces could muster. The 38-minute war may be a historical footnote, but its lessons resonate to this day, prompting us to examine the complexities of colonialism and its enduring legacy on the world stage. It challenges us to think about the consequences of power imbalances and the ways in which history continues to shape our present and future.